Well, Warren Mitchell, a great big welcome once again to Perth. How many times have you been here in Perth now?
4 times, 3 times to work. The first time was my first visit to Australia 8 years ago. My wife and I landed here to see a couple of friends, that's all. And we were introduced to the Perth salute. I actually had a friend who was working in a television studio as a lighting man, Bill Linsky. I don't know whether it was here. It was one of the studios anyway, in Perth. And 3 times, this is my 3rd visit to La Tenda.
What do you think of Perth?
It's a most beautiful city. It really is. I'm a bit of a sailing freak, and I love when I've been sailing out down the river, and we went over to Rottnest last year and the time before. And one thing I noticed, I suppose it's something that all smaller towns suffer from. I went to the barbecues from all the sailing crowd, and I would go to Harry's barbecue, and where I would meet Mary and her husband. Then I go to Mary and her husband's barbecue and meet Harry. It's a sort of pretty closed circle. I don't know that I'm... Well, I suppose perhaps that's one of the virtues living in a smaller city, that you do know so many people and you see them all the time. It would worry me slightly that you keep on meeting the same people, and perhaps that you couldn't really have any kind of private life. Everyone would know every damn thing you were doing. I would imagine. Is that right about Perth?
I don't think so. I think the people in WA think that Perth is a rather big city because it's the biggest one over here in quite an area. But do you find the people here very friendly?
Oh, very much so.
And you no doubt you do a lot of globe-trotting, travelling around the world. I was wanting a comparison of Perth with, say, other cities you've been to.
I don't do a lot of globe-trotting. I come once a year. I don't enjoy travelling at all. I hate it. I don't go on holidays unless I'm forced to. I'm celebrating my silver wedding in about 4 weeks' time, and my wife and I will go to Venice, mainly because she's doing the Open University course in England. It's part of her course. There's Restoration, Reformation, and the painters of that time. I would, of course, like to see Venice. I've never been, which is a shocking thing to admit. I've been to Florence and Pisa and other parts of Italy. I don't enjoy holidays. At least I don't enjoy the lying on the beach, the traditional kind of holiday. I think that most people are conned. I think most people are unhappy on holiday. I see these elderly Americans traipsing around Athens and the Parthenon, and they really would be very much happier back in Colorado or wherever they come from. And they've saved all their lives for this big trip, but they're going to be slapped around in great jumbo jets and slapped down in hotels and made to eat food they don't want to eat. I think the whole holiday-making thing is the biggest con in the world. Most people are so relieved when they get home, and the English people, they put the kettle on, ain't it nice, have a cup of tea and get home. I don't think travel... Perhaps I can be blasé, I can afford to be blasé. I've seen a lot of the world, or some of the world anyway. I never travel for preference, and I couldn't compare Perth to any other city. I don't know enough about it. It would be presumptuous of me. I can say it's a nicer city to look at than Auckland. I can say that I preferred, though, the South Pacific Hotel in Auckland because it was kind of, I didn't have to put a collar and tie on like the Parmelian here. Last night the idiots insist on me putting a tie on to go in the dining room so I couldn't have dinner. There are little things that you notice, only the little things that occurred to me. Last time I was here, I ate in a place where you threw peanut shells over the floor. That struck me as fun. But I thought the restaurant was idiotic. They were filling people up with so many peanuts, nobody's ordering any food. This is what a city, a town, a country, anything is made up of lots of little incidents. And so I remember Newcastle, New South Wales, only because of this woman who came up to the box office of the Savoy Theatre restaurant and said, "Warren Mitchell is Alf Garnett. I don't want to see an impersonator. I want to see the real thing." That's how I will always remember Newcastle, not particularly the surf beach or anything else about it.
Well, while you're here, how long are you going to be here for a start?
Well, I was originally due to work from Monday to Saturday at La Tenda, and the bookings have been very heavy, and so Vince Todaro asked me this morning would I stay for another night, and I said yes, paying me, of course. And so I'm staying, doing an extra show on Sunday. We're doing an earlier show, so I'll go on Monday instead of Sunday. I'm going on Monday to Melbourne.
To Melbourne, and where to from there?
2 weeks in Melbourne, a week in Sydney and back home. I've been here since January in Australia.
You'll be doing the clubs in Sydney?
Yeah. Well, I've done several weeks in New South Wales, in Sydney and country districts of New South Wales. I must say that those small country towns of New South Wales, I don't know the small towns of Western Australia, but they are lovely. I mean, the motels are awful, like you're like a battery hen, and, you know, you put your breakfast card in at 6 o'clock the night before. I mean, I said to her, I don't know what I want for breakfast at 6 o'clock the night before. Well, if you don't put your breakfast card in, you don't get breakfast, you know. But apart from these awful motels, the towns and the people, and Bathurst, Parks, Orange, Dubbo, Wagga, I really enjoyed them. They're lovely, really lovely places to live. And I'm sure, you know, I can't speak about Western Australia. I've never been anywhere but Perth.
Well, we hope next time you come here you'll have a bit more time to poke around the country areas.
Yeah.
You mentioned a woman saying she wanted to see Alf Garnett. Do you find most of the people you meet treat you more as Alf Garnett than Warren Mitchell?
Well, they call me Alf. They say good. I think most people know now. They've heard. I mean, I've done more interviews than Gough Whitlam, I should think.
Gough Whitlam, can I just butt in there?
Yes, do.
What would Alf Garnett think of what's happened to Gough Whitlam?
Well, I mean, the main thing was what happened to... I mean, Her Majesty the Queen was rung up at 3 o'clock in the morning about it. I mean, Sir John Kerr got on a blower. She had to wake Philip, you know. He said, go to sleep. He says, I'm playing polo in the morning. Never mind your polo, she says. There's trouble in the penal colonies. It's that cough drop Whitlam acting a goat again. And Philip said, well, I knew there'd be trouble with a wife as tall as that. I should never have appointed him. No, it's a big inconvenience to Her Majesty. I mean, getting it all sorted out. But, I mean, she got on to Rupert Murdoch in England, you know. She said, look, she said, make sure. She said, you want to go on publishing your news of the world in Britain. You make sure that Malcolm Fraser wins that election out in Australia, because we've had enough of cough drop with him. Get rid of him. He's a pain in the ass. Well, she didn't say that. Words to that effect, you know. She wouldn't use language like that, not Her Majesty.
Well, might I ask what Alf would think of the present trouble within the royal family?
It's none of your business. We don't talk about it. Divorce. I mean, we've hardly recovered from the bit about the Duke of Windsor, have we? It's all starting up again. Well, I mean, he's not royal, is he? He's got photography, you know, he can flash it, but...
What about the rumours about Princess Margaret and Roddy?
That's got nothing to do with him. But what royalty does is their own business. You mind your own business. Like penal settlement, a bloody penal colony starting to comment on the behaviour of the royal family to do what they bloody will like.
Alf would be very upset about Harold losing his job, surely.
About timing. But I mean, look, who are we going to have in his place? Bloody red-faced Mick Jim Callaghan. Looks like him. Or Michael Foot. Right couple of bolshy bastards they are, aren't they?
How would Alf feel about Margaret Thatcher getting the job?
Margaret, she got about as much hope of being Prime Minister. A woman Prime Minister, she got about as much hope of being Prime Minister as John Stonehouse has of being Governor of the Bank of England, or Junior Morosi has of being a shorthand typist. No, it's a ridiculous bloody woman.
How do you feel about Alf Garnett? Do you find yourself slipping into that character when you don't really want to be that character?
No, I never slip into him when I don't want to. I love him. I think he's a great, awful monster. You have to admire people who go on blindly following their own line, irrespective. Johnny Spate, who writes him, who created him. I mean, I only learn the lines and don't fall over the furniture. That's my job.
But a lot of those lines that you came up with then were your own.
Yes, some. Well, because Johnny doesn't come to Australia with me, and I have to write Alf myself in Australia, and I'm aware of the political scene here.
In the shows you do, as Alf Garnett, do you have much of a say in the lines?
In the television?
Yes, in the television series.
There's no question of say if I don't like something or if I have a good idea, I could. But Johnny, in my opinion, Johnny Spate is the nearest thing to a genius writing today. I think his scripts are so great. It would be presumptuous of me not to learn them exactly as they're written, and mostly I do. Sometimes at odd bits I can suggest an improvement, or I can find a bit I don't really care for. Mostly, they're the product of that extraordinarily fertile brain, Spates, and he sits there and churns them out, and they're wonderful.
In America, they've started a show now, which is similar to your show. What do you think of? Do you think it's a direct steal? Are you a bit annoyed about a show like this?
No, on the contrary, it's not a direct steal. The Americans are very circumspect in this way. They, in fact, approached Johnny Speight. They paid him a great deal of money for the rights to the show, and Johnny earns well out of it, and I'm very pleased for him. And it's a very good show. I'm less keen on what the Australian tried to do with a similar show, because
they never,
the
Australians,
right, which they claim had nothing to do with Till Death, which obviously did, but betrayed by its absence of any talent in the writing the fact that they weren't prepared to pay any money. That is thievery, or comes near to plagiarism. Johnny Speight would take no action because he would consider it beneath him. The Americans behave correctly. The Australians have done in the past, nicked things, and they don't believe in paying writers. I think when they change that notion, they might get some television which is worth watching. I mean, locally produced television.
Have you seen our Norman Gunston show?
Yes. No, I haven't, and it's the one show I miss, and I believe it's very funny, and I believe he is a man of talent. But you see, there's Barry Humphries knocking them cold in London at the moment. Yeah, they know who he is over here. They've heard of Edna, but I mean, he has to come to England. I talked about when Till Death first came up. The part was offered. I was about the fourth choice. The part was first offered to an actor called Leo McKern, a magnificent actor, one of our greatest actors. He's an Australian. He comes from Cairns. When I say this to people, they never heard of him. It's a monstrous thing that Australians do to literally spit on their own talent, and the talent in the end goes overseas because nobody will pay them to perform here. I mean, they'll pay for, $2 million for an Olympic stadium or $3 million for a pool, but the idea of actually spending money on the arts to give writers, long-haired weirdies, puss, no, we don't do that. It's wrong. The arts are as important as good drains and good hospitals. Eventually, the idea of public money going to the arts, and this is, of course, what the Labour government under Whitlam was trying to do, and maybe they spent some of it in the wrong way, but at least they did try. It didn't happen under the previous, under McMahon, and, they never thought of that. I'm very sad that the Labour government's been replaced in Australia. I think they'll be back, anyway.
I guess Alf's upset too about it.
No, Alf's a Tory, and I mean, one of the blindest Tories. I mean, a working class Tory. There's nothing worse. A man who's at the very bottom end of the scale and is kept there and is voting for the party which is helping to keep him there.
One thing I wanted to ask you, when Till Death Has to Part originally started, it was one of the first shows which used slightly off-colour language on TV. How far do you think you'll go in the show with language? It seems to be, I'm not saying it's getting worse, but it seems to be getting a bit broader all the time in every series.
Well, we don't on Till Death. I mean, the BBC has a strange code of what may or may not be said, and I find it laughable. Now, I'm going to say words in the next passage which you'll undoubtedly have to bleep out, but I'll say them because it's easier to say them. You can bleep them out, because, I mean, I wouldn't do this to you.
We've got a good recording engineer.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, the BBC, for example, now they label our programme light entertainment. We go on at 9:25 usually at home. So the kids are supposed to, some of them have gone to bed, but it still comes under the heading of light entertainment. So we can say bloodies or bleedings. I'm usually rationed to about, 10 bloodies and 4 bleedings per show. One show I said, this had to come out.
You said that on TV over here and got away with it, okay.
Did I?
Yes, at the Opera House.
Did I really?
Yes.
Good.
I remember that.
Well, that's probably because it wasn't a recording and they couldn't take it out. But at 7:30 at night on the BBC, there was a documentary about boxer, what's his name, world light heavyweight champion, John Conti, and his manager's sitting in the corner, talking to him in between rounds, saying, "Now go on, John." This all came out, with that word at 7:30 at night on the BBC. It's a documentary. Therefore, you can say what you like. It makes no sense to me. Words, I find so many other things so much more offensive than bad language. I find 90% of the television offered to the Australian public as offensive. Offensive because it's an insult to their intelligence. Some of the cops and robbers things and some of the American chocolate box humour shows, I find the morality in those shows to be a real insult. And if you said bloody until you were blue in the face, it couldn't upset me more than these programs do.
Just before you go, I'm holding a record here, Till Death Us Do Part, and you have another one about music halls.
Yeah.
I think we might hear a track from that. But
Lovely.
Just before you go, we hope you have a wonderful time here in Perth. And are you coming back?
Yes, I reckon I'll Vince, who runs La Tenda, I mean, he seems to become a permanent institution here, and on my way into Australia or on my way out of Australia, I would always hope to be asked, and Vince says he will, since I seem to fill the place for him, he's going to go on asking me, I suppose. I do have a marvellous time here. I'll go off and play tennis this afternoon at East Fremantle at the Marshalls, and I'll bum a ride on a boat on Sunday, sailing somewhere.
What's your favourite track on this recording of the music hall one?
I don't know, let me think. I like Trinity Church, and I'll tell you one I haven't heard for a while. There's a little story to this. When I made the record, in order to keep the cost down, it's a budget record, they said, we want a non-copyright number. Would you sing Grandfather's Clock? I said, I can't sing Grandfather's, not Alf material. But Laurie Holloway, who played piano and did a marvellous kind of jazzy arrangement. I'm a jazz freak, really. And in that there's some good musicians playing on this band, on this bit of the record. I'd quite like to hear that again. Grandfather's Clock.
Warren or Alf, thanks very much.
Right, let's get syncopating a bit. Give them the old razzmatazz. Get myself comfy.
My grandfather's clock was too large for the shelf, so it stood 90 years on the floor. It was taller by half than the old man himself, though it weighed not a pennyweight more. It was bought on the moon of the day years without slumbering. Tick-tock, tick-tock, his life's seconds numbering. Tick-tock, a tick-a-tick-tock, it stopped and died.
Hello, who woke him up?
In watching its pendulum swing to and fro, many hours he had spent as a boy. And in childhood and manhood the clock seems to know, and to share both his grief and his joy. For it struck 24 when he entered at the door with a blooming and beautiful bride. But it stopped a short and never to go again when the old man died.
Go on, hot lips. See, I've got him going now.
My grandfather said that of those he could hire, not a servant so faithfully found. For it wasted no time and had but one desire at the close of each week to be won. And he kept in his place, not a frown upon his face, and his hands never hung by his side. But it stopped a short and never to go again when the old man died.
See, you get someone a bit decent singing, it inspires them.
So it rang an alarm in the dead of the night, an alarm that for years had been dumb. And we knew that his spirit was blooming the flight, that his hour of departure had come. Still the clock kept the time with a soft and a muffled chime as we silently stood by its side. But it stopped short and never to go again when the old man died. 90 years without slumbering, a tick-tock, a tick-a-tick-tock, his life seconds numbering. A tick-tock, a tick-a-tick-tock, oh it stopped short and never to go again when the old man died. When the old man died. When the old man died.
Well, I didn't know I had it in me. All right, I'm finished. Hey, they're open, you know. Blimey, they're all gone.